I'd like to call this meeting of the Narragansett Regional School District School Committee to order. If you would all please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As a reminder, this meeting is being live streamed and recorded and is available to view on YouTube and Facebook. So we're going to start with regular business here, kicking off with meeting minutes. I would entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of January 30th, 2025 as written. Motion by Sean, second by Heather. Any questions or comments on the January 30th minutes? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, and I say yes, so that is unanimous. Moving on to meeting minutes from February 6th, I would entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of February 6th, 2025 as written.
So moved.
Motion by Sean, second by Heather. Any questions or comments on those meeting minutes? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, and I say yes, so that is also unanimous. Moving on, I would also recommend a motion to accept the bills and payroll warrants as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Sean, second by Heather. Any questions or comments about the bills and payroll? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, and I say yes, so that is unanimous. Okay, our student rep was not able to be here this evening. We were expecting.
Corey Rogers is just finishing up a session with Desi that ends at 5:30, so I wonder if it's so
Not a problem. Parker, would NDEA like to say anything this evening?
Not much, just things are going well, back from February vacation. Hoping for no more snow days. Ready for the midterms for quarter 3 already in middle and high school, which is just insane. It's just going by so fast. But everyone seems to be back in the groove and getting ready for those midterms to close. I know the girls have a game tonight, so that's exciting, the varsity girls. But nothing new, so no news is good news.
No, this is good news. Well, thank you so much for updating us. So we'll keep moving through if anyone's not opposed, we'll keep moving through the agenda and then we'll come back to Corey once he's here. All right, excellent. So FY25 budget update, any news on budget for this year?
No, we say the same thing, Madam Chair, it's tight, but we're plodding along, so. But all things considered, we're hanging.
Okay, FY26 budget cycle update. So as my initial reminder, on March 6th at 5:30 will be our preliminary budget hearing. And on March 20th will be our main budget hearing. So preliminary budget hearing is already next week. So please make sure those very important meetings are on your calendar. Some of our most important meetings of the year. We'd love folks from the public and DEA, et cetera, to be here for those meetings. Definitely a lot of important discussions going on. One of the things I would share is we did have, so we had the multi-board meeting on February 6th, and we did follow that with a chairs meeting to further dig into and discuss what's happening in towns. Templeton select board chairs, advisory board chairs, and town administrator and assistant town administrator were able to attend. Good discussion, good conversation. I will share that we're being asked to look at. We're being asked to do a lot of projections. Such that the ask from the town is based on the amounts that we have asked for this year, what happens next year. Now, projections for school budgets are very difficult. We have to make a lot of assumptions and caveats about numbers of kids, et cetera. That said, they're essentially asking us is this the pattern forever and ongoing? Or is this, you know, another year of sort of catching up from that influx of students several years ago? This year, we said we don't really think it's really related to the students so much as it's related to increased costs. But, you know, difficult to predict the future, though we will do that. They did also ask us to look at what might happen in worst case scenarios. What they built into the budget for this year is only roughly a 2.5% increase, which would mean cutting our budget proposal by around $750,000. We are looking at that. We're not saying that that's what we are voting for. That said, in order to be responsible, also going to do some projections out of what would happen if we did cut the budget by that amount. Because what our gut says in school committee world is that should we cut the budget by that amount, we would only then be trying to recoup that again in the coming years, and it would be a short-term cut with long-term negative impact. But more to come there, more discussion happening. The important thing to emphasize here is that there is conversation happening. Would you, Dr. C or Danielle, would you add anything related to FY26 budget discussions?
No, I mean, that's generally, it's almost status quo. This is how it generally goes, is that
Yes.
we have been told to project the budget, or at least to present the budget as needed. And from there is where we do the work. And that's where we're at right now. I know there's a very important advisory committee meeting going on right now or soon in Templeton in regards to this year and years forward. So we have another meeting, obviously, as I just said. We have a chairs meeting coming up.
The morning of the 6th,
On the
such
6th,
that
yeah.
we sure that evening is going to be appropriately reflective of those conversations.
So, yeah, I'm sorry.
I was gonna move on to the next agenda item unless you had something.
Well,
to
I
say
do
about
have this
FY26.
FY26.
Okay, so let's talk about
So-
that. Yeah.
I don't know, I don't want to labor too long, but the district has gone through the process of approaching the CPCs of both towns for funds to complete the softball / practice field that is adjacent to the baseball field, right? And so as we might have talked about that from facilities and finance committee, we're needing to increase our space because we don't have practice areas and we don't want to necessarily transport or have transporting the kids back and forth to Gilman and Wade, and the girls don't have a softball field. They don't play on area games. And so we've gone through all that. So we went through the process. We made the application, the CPC met, and they allocated not the total amount, but a certain amount of monies towards the project, which then has to go before, the town. It actually literally has to be on the warrant and your vote, the town's vote on whether or not they want to expend those funds on this project. By the way, for all CPC, not just because it's the district. Okay. So last night I noticed that there was an agenda item in regards to the CPC funds. So I watched, and Mr. Bennett, what did I say? Did I say?
You didn't specify what.
Oh, the select board, so I thought I might have said, oh my God, did I say school board? Yeah, the select board from Elton, because it was on the agenda and Mr. Bennett, presented the case of who going back several years, but when there have been these discretionary fund opportunities, and I'm gonna say discretionary because I don't know what basket they would actually fall under, but the ARPA monies, as we know, really helped out with drainage, et cetera, and of course the CPC monies. When we've applied for these type of monies, we break it down to whatever the percentage is per kid. So let's call it 80-20, just for lack of a better number, that 80 Phillips and 20 I mean, 80 for Templeton and 20 for Phillips. In all cases, Templeton has come through. They did for the ARPA monies, and Phillips then declined. The CPC, Templeton, at least to this juncture, has approved, said yes, to put it to the warrant, and Phillipson declined. But what Mr. Bennett was basically saying is that we've gone forward, and we're a regional, and Templeton has put a lot of money towards the district without much, I would say, reciprocity from our other member town. And of course, the budget as it is, because of the number of students, the comparison between the two towns, it's very heavily weighted towards Templeton rather than Phillipston, because it's probably 85-15. And these are monies that, of course, Templeton is giving the district, which is the regional, and the argument was, that look, we keep giving, and there isn't a lot of reciprocity, and we've got other things to do, and we've got projects of our own. I'm doing a very poor job summarizing Mr. Bennett, but it's on YouTube. So what I did is, in thinking about this, I wrote Mr. Bennett, and I CC'd the chair of the select board, of course, chair, and I will forward to the rest of the meeting. If I may, it's just easier for me to read that, I agree. I said that I completely agreed with him after listening to, what he had to say. He said, as superintendent, my primary responsibility is to the district, most importantly to our students. I pursue providing them with the best possible opportunities. I sometimes lose sight the broad political and financial realities of operating as a regional school district, the mutual responsibilities that come with it. It is clear that Templeton has been incredibly supportive, especially in the instances where Phillipston has not provided the same level of commitment. In my continuous effort to improve the district, I failed to fully recognize and appreciate the financial imbalance that has occurred. This is not to criticize Phillipston, whether the lack of reciprocal support is due to financial constraints or other factors is not the key issue here. What matters is that I take responsibility for having overlooked the disproportionate financial burden Templeton has shouldered, particularly regarding the distribution of discretionary grant funds in support of the district. While I've expressed my gratitude for Templeton's support on multiple occasions, last night's discussion made me realize just how much the town has contributed, often alone, through discretionary funding sources such as ARPA, capital improvement funds, etc. Let me be clear. No one is off the hook for me not asking for money. I will always advocate strongly for the services of kids. So if you thought this was me going soft, think again. And I put kid in to make sure I didn't offend it. With this in mind, I plan to address the issue tonight's school committee meeting under the FY26 budget discussion item. I will recommend that the district rescind its request for CPC funds for the softball field practice field project as a step in the right direction, addressing the final balance. So I mean that, and I want that field, and I want that space for our kids. That's all, right? That's what we want. But in hearing Mr. Bennett's argument yesterday, I really, if I was to just look at it rationally, that we have absolutely gone to the well, Templeton well, quite a bit, and they've actually invited us. It isn't like we've gone and had to beg or anything like that. They've been very, very helpful with the needs that we've had, and thinking about that. I think it's proof that I rescind that officially. And if there are projects in Templeton, which I'm sure there are, that CPC could benefit, then I think that's where I believe that's where those monies should go until we can offer some type of balance between both communities. And again, I'm not speaking so much of the budget. I will be very candid. Look, I can understand this, but we also need to do what we need to do in terms of educating our children. But these type of discretionary funds, or whatever you want to call them, I think, I definitely agree with Mr. Bennett about that. So I just want to make sure that I said that to you. I would forward the letter to everyone. But I did send them out this afternoon.
Any questions for Dr. Caspan about those specific funds? All right, so we're gonna put a pause on budget update items, and we're going to, give the floor to Mr. Rogers about the American Enterprise Summit information. Is there something to pull up on the screen or?
Can we at least pull, is it possible to pull up the, I'm gonna call it the flyer, but just while we do that, how about we start?
Yes, we would love to hear from you more about this.
Thank you for the time. I apologize. I was trapped in a Department of Ed training that just never seems to end. So this is actually the second year. So this is a pilot program put together from the Horatio Alger Association, which is largely a philanthropic organization. It's made of, men and women all across the United States, and now it's gone into Canada, and they do a lot of things mostly around scholarship and investing in students and education. And a number of years ago, they decided that they were going to start to do it earlier, try to inject some opportunities in places where they didn't exist, right? So they came up with this concept. Horatio Alger Association is based in Alexandria, Virginia. Happens to be right next to Close Up, which has historically been around. It's been around since it's like 53 years, where they have brought students in to do kind of a ton of work around civics and government and things of that nature. And so they've got a core understanding of those kind of concepts. And Horatio Alger Association partnered with them last year to do the first one. And so what they did was they took 10 schools from all across the US at Title I schools, and they offered them an opportunity to take one teacher and 10 rising 8th grade students and bring them down to DC for like a 4-day conference. Everything for the conference, from the transportation there, transportation while they're there, the hotel accommodations while they're there, all the food, all of the materials. There's no cost to be borne by the students, the school, or the staff. Those things are all paid for by the association. And the agenda is essentially the American enterprise system, freedom, democracy, civil responsibility, expectations as a citizen of the United States. So there's a million opportunities to do those things in DC, as we all know. Some of the advantages of our students get to see that from a different lens is, so as an example, and I think, and I can't be certain this year, last year they couldn't make it happen, but one of the association members is a Supreme Court justice. And so last year, the intent was to have the students get to go in to the Supreme Court and sit down with the justice and kind of review what it looks like. That's right now, there's only 2 organizations in the US that get to do that. Horatio Alger is one of them. So this one, which is Horatio Alger also, but to get to go a second time with a different group of students is ideal. Lots of different opportunities for them to see some of the things that have made our country great. And one of the things that I think is important is, it reminds me of when I was a college student, we made it, we did a lot of mentorship with kids in school. And where it made the most impact is we met these kids in 8th grade and walked with them through high school. And that's kind of the model that they developed for this. And so most scholarships come out and, for kids that are graduating or done at the end of their senior year, the association has backed their scholarships up to the beginning of the end of their junior year, beginning of their senior year, and they're working with them all through their senior year to maximize all the opportunities for them for their following year. So I think since we started doing that as an association, the scholarship itself is amazing. It's $40,000. It's really a lot of opportunity there, but the amount of students that have not used all of their scholarship money and have seen and found opportunities to offset that cost is probably at 40%, which is it's a huge number, which is what the intention is to help bring, the original concept was, overcoming adversity and still finding success because of all the opportunities that exist here. And I was excited. They offered it to me last year. I was a middle school principal and we weren't able to get it off the ground. I didn't expect to be invited back a second time. and they're gracious enough to offer it to us. It may be an opportunity that is just one off. They don't know this is only the second year they've done it. They don't know if they'll do it every year, if they'll pick different schools. This particular year, there are 4 schools that are returning from last year. So there is some opportunity. There may be an opportunity. This might be something that we would do for the future. At the very minimum, it is at least this opportunity this year. And so I'm excited to have that opportunity for us and our students.
I would add that you know so much about this because.
I was a 1990 Horatio Alger Scholar in Massachusetts back when I got the scholarship, back before, there were, paper to write on and things like that. There was one per state, so there was only 50. Now we give away annually, well, it's probably about 3,000 scholarships a year because they do all kinds of military scholarships, CTE scholarships, senior scholar, well, it's junior scholarships now, state scholarships, national scholarships. I was a national scholar, so I represented Massachusetts in 1990. I've been going back. I'll go back this year for the annual conference where we'll have all 150 or so national scholars will be there for a week. We'll be doing all similar things, but at a different level for these students. Some of the events, so every year the association invites and inducts 10 or 11 members nationally and internationally. Usually, 1 or 2 of them are folks that we've heard about, right? Like, I think of Buzz Aldrin, Justice Thomas, Magnum PI, Tom Selleck, all the famous Oprah Winfrey, all these people that everyone knows. Those are kind of, in our face all the time. But then there's, Ambassador Barrett. She's an ambassador now, but before she was the first female pilot to break the sound barrier for the Air Force. So like these are kind of people who started with nothing, all kinds of different opportunities. And so when they're there in DC in, April, they'll throughout the course of the week of the things that they're doing, they are sitting, meeting, talking about, hearing about, making connections, and that's where a lot of those opportunities for the students come. I remember when the year I got it, one of the students that I was friends with, Jim Bob Moffett, who was the chairman and CEO of Freeport McMoran, which is like the largest global mining community in the country. I think it's in the world now, but back then it was fairly large. And so here's this kid who lived in the community near where he was, and so he took this student on as like a intern, and like for the entire time he was in college, he always had jobs to work off. So he had lots of opportunities to learn and benefit from. And so these are the kind of opportunities that these students will get. And they're just, every single time I go, I can't believe they've impressed more than it's probably the greatest opportunity. The students that we see now compared to the one, like, the amount of students that applied for the scholarship back in 1990, there wasn't the internet, there wasn't all these things, they called all the guidance counselors in Massachusetts and said, here, get this applicant, so maybe, who knows? I don't know, maybe there's only one person, maybe it was just me that applied, or there could be 100, I don't know. But every year when I sit on the committee, I'll read 40 to 60 applications from 40,000 people applying, and the people and the kind of ability set and what to expect from these scholars is it's unmeasurable. You just cannot put they've moved across, a foreign country in the back of a car while, Civil War was going on, and, they're waiting for their parents to come, and they've been living in a closet for the last six years, all these things. And yet somehow they're managing to have a 5.0 grade scale on a 4.0, 5.0 on a 4.0 grade scale. They've created a, coding for women class and all these things. And it's so amazing. And so to see that and to have them start looking for those things in the possibility in 8th graders is just, it's really a great opportunity. So I'm excited about it. Maybe you can't tell.
So the committee, we're not asking, there's no, like, obviously, because we would have had to see them. The time down there is like July 8th to the 11th, right? So We don't know what,
That was 2024.
Yeah, that this year it's the last week in June. It's on.
My fault.
Yeah, it's on. It's in
We're
the.
in the wrong one, yeah, last week of June. And what we also, what we know is that, look, I'm sure we'll find 10 kids who would certainly meet the criteria and want these type of things. What we don't know is that if we can find someone who is able, willing to chaperone, for lack of a better word. And so what we wanted to do before just went ahead and did it, is to give you a very quick background. We definitely have some documents that you want to look at as you can get an understanding of what we're talking about, other than just hearing it from an actual, scholar about the program. But these opportunities do not present themselves often. And if 10 students from Narragansett could possibly, actually enjoy these type of, which wants, then who knows what happens after that. That I wouldn't be doing my job, quite frankly, if I didn't, look into the hospital. Given the fact that there is literally no cost to anyone to do it. It's all about the benefit of kids. So we're gonna, of course, talk with, and it's rising 8th grade. So we'll have conversations with both Mr. Premier and of course Mr. Young, because one is leaving and one is going to be receiving. So we'll talk to both schools to see if there's anyone who's heck, I might volunteer. I just can't imagine just going down there and seeing. If you've ever been to the Washington, 8th grade trip, it's fantastic. This is Washington trip on steroids, for God's sakes. But I wanted to just let you know that that's something that we're going to look into, and then we will come back next month. And we've talked to the organization. Well, we have so many meetings in March anyway. It makes it easier to come back to kind of let you know what we've been able to find out in terms of participation and interest.
Any immediate questions about this opportunity? Yeah, this sounds phenomenal. I mean, I'm really excited for this, and yes, your excitement definitely shone through. I don't know, that always gets me, it's special to see someone who has benefited so much get to share what they have benefited from with a new set of students. So that's a really special thing. So really excited to find out more about what exactly is needed, and the student selection process and all that. But I think this is just amazing.
Right. And we're gonna start right off the bat. We're gonna start off with, would anyone like to be a part of this in terms of the staff?
Perfect, yeah, because you need a staff member first.
That'll, of course, that'll be, so.
Yep. Okay, great. Thank you so much for coming in.
Absolutely. If everybody has any questions, feel free to reach out. Happy to answer and respond, and make sure I can do whatever we can to help these kids go.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Ms. Smith behind you, I think she's a little.
I'm totally volunteer. I would absolutely take, I know it's not first graders, but I would take it.
Might be worth changing.
Thank you.
Great. Back to the budget update section of our presentation. We also wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to talk through the Templeton working group. So just to make sure that I am appropriately referencing this, the document is attached. I am going to read a little bit of it, though not all of it. The charge and composition is a working group to explore withdrawal from Narragansett Regional School District. The Templeton Town Administrator, within his authority as the Chief Financial Officer, shall appoint a working group to examine efficiencies, restructuring up to and including withdrawal or partial withdrawal from the Narragansett Regional School District. This was posted publicly to Facebook on the TCTV Facebook page. We know that there has been a lot of discussion online, and this is the first opportunity we've had to speak to and address it as a committee. So Dr. C is gonna say what you would like to add.
Sure. So without going into too much detail, as to why, many of us did not know that this was going to be posted. Let me be clear before we get started that it's well within the town administrator's authority and scope to have this committee. There is absolutely no question about that. And I want to make sure I always pause so people understand that that is not the issue. Of course, you can have this. That's one of the great things about being able to have a committee. Why not? Let's have a thing. The other, but that was well within his scope. What transpired though the following day without really knowing that this was coming, and there's some disagreement, I think, I don't know about exactly why and how it was posted without really any kind of run up to it or notice. And that aside, is that it caught almost everyone by surprise. And I received, I don't know, there were a lot of concerns that were, I had parents going, is my son or daughter going to be able to graduate from Narragansett? Do I need to move? And it was a lot because, when you see leave the district, you get obviously the impression that it could be immediate, which it is not. Right, so let me just be clear. I also received a phone call from the state rep. Saying, what are you doing? Like, what is happening? And I didn't have answers. And so staff reached out. I had local districts reach out to me going, what's happening? It was a busy morning. So the point I'm making is that there has been, I think, some clarity that has been offered as to why they would like to what they would like to look into. I don't know how widely that has been disseminated in a conversation that I believe it was during the last select board meeting. Mr. Fontaine went into it a bit in terms of.
He went into it in our chairs.
And he went into it more thoroughly in our chairs meeting about, looking for opportunities, et cetera. I don't know what works into small, but in general, and so, well, we haven't quite, I don't believe I might have missed something, but I don't know that something has been put out is really kind of to close the loop on that, because people still they do still ask me as to what is the role of the district. So we don't have a role. So as it is and by the way, that is also absolutely okay and under the purview of the town administrator. They have a local community group to look at some of these options. So we're not part of the conversation, but that is okay. Meaning from the fact is that it's not some type of violence. Someone told me it was a violation. It's not a violation. This is a working group. We would like to be part of the conversation. We like to think that we know a little bit about regionals and how they're set up, how they're financed, and how just the mechanisms work. So we think we can be a help. We could be a good source of information. I plan on attending the meetings once they're posted because I'd like to understand where the direction is going. I understand that there are conversations that have happened with Phillipston. I don't know, but I think that they're part of the larger group here, but I don't know. There's some things that I still don't know. But I want to assure folks that there is nothing in it. That is, so folks should not worry that Narragansett will somehow change into something else in the very near future. There are statute, right, that one has to follow to even, there's the regional agreement issue that we have, because as it's been widely discussed, we do not have a current regional agreement. And meaning that we don't have an updated regional agreement. And that has been something that we've been chasing for a bit. Department of Ed has contacted the Department of Ed to find out what is the next step in order to move that process along. And it's been going on, I think our first meeting was in 21 or 20, 20 or 21. So again, there's a lot to this. A lot. And I'm sure that the working group will tackle all of it. But what I don't want to do is I do want to put something out, of course I do. I do want to put some information out to the public and to the staff who've also asked me questions, because of course it affects them. But I wait for direction and clarity on that. So that way, our folks can maybe breathe a little easier, or just to understand that, this is not something that's going to happen literally overnight. I'm not sure how much more.
I think the only other thing I'd share is that at this point in time, the only ask that has been made to the district is to be prepared to send over documentation on request. Which we have, of course, committed to doing. So I mean, there's lots of documentation available, so as they identify those needs, we'll certainly send it over. But just to reiterate, right now, we don't know exactly what the composition of who will be serving on that working group, or how those folks will be selected. Though Mr. Lamontagne did confirm that Phillipston reached out and expressed an interest in participating in that working group. However, again, who that will be and what that will look like, we're still waiting on. So, but we did want to make sure that everyone heard from us on this topic. Just to first of all, reassure folks that this is not happening tomorrow. And also to, help folks understand what our role in this is for now. Any questions on that? Moving right along, I know Anne Marie is still out. Do we want to suspend business managers report for the next meeting? Okay, not a problem. So we will review things with her next time around. We do still have our school committee vacancy for Templeton, so encourage your friends, your family, we'd love to have a full committee. Curriculum and instruction update. I understand we have some middle of year data to share.
I'm excited to share with you our middle of the year MOI, for just one more acronym to add to your list. So we do what's called benchmark assessing with our students 3 times a year. It's essentially like taking the temperature to see where our students at in relation to national normative data. So how do our students compare, and what are some of their strengths and areas that we can identify to support planning, instruction, and or interventions and enrichments to support our students. So just before February break, we finished up our MOI, or middle of the year assessment window. And so today I'm excited to present to you what that data shows, what some of the highlights are, and then what we have done leading up that might have contributed to some of the changes that you see in the data. So to start off, we assess all of our K-3 students, our primary age students, using an assessment tool called DIBELS, which is Dynamic Indicators for Basic Early Literacy Skills. So another one to add to your acronym list. But essentially this assessment assesses students' early or foundational literacy skills, including phonemic awareness, their ability to understand and process sounds, phonics, their ability to connect those sounds with letters, following the alphabetic principle, and various skills related to that, and then their reading fluency. And so I'm really excited to share with you that overall we've had for grades K-3 a 10% increase in students meeting or exceeding the benchmark for foundational literacy skills. So when you look at this very colorful, bright chart, what you're seeing is a comparison of the beginning of the year data, overall data for this assessment, to the middle of year data. And what this shows, particularly for K2, are some really exciting patterns showing positive growth for students within these categories. I was actually up at the elementary school today talking to a few of our teachers, one of which said, "Did you see my data this year? Did you see it?" I mean, they were so excited. And one of the things that we did, leading up to this school year, or two of the things we did really, we readjusted the elementary school schedule to prioritize literacy instruction time. And we had brought in and been implementing this year the structured literacy component to our core reading program, which is new from our publishing company. So our elementary teachers in K1 and 2 have been learning about and implementing a structured literacy component to our inter-reading program, which has shown some really significant increases, and you'll see that echoed in our STAR data as well. So we're pretty excited to see those growth patterns. I know folks have seen this probably ad nauseum, but we also, for all students across the district in grades K through 12, we use a benchmark tool called STAR. And STAR assesses a variety of skills for both reading and for math. And so you can see just an overview of some of the strands or major topics that are covered in that assessment. This assessment is adaptive. So questions do get progressively easier or harder based on student input. So it's a very individualized assessment, and then their scores are compared to national norms as well. And so when we look at our STAR data, we really are looking at two different things. We're looking at the achievement levels. So how do students compare to other students at the same grade and at the same period or time of the year? We use 4 categories to talk about achievement data of at or above benchmark, what those expectations are. On watch, which are students who are pretty close or on the cusp or approaching. Students who are in need of intervention or students who are in need of urgent intervention. And then in addition to that, we look at students' growth rates with their student growth percentile. So that we're looking at both achievement, how are they doing in relation to a standard? And then and growth, how are they doing in relation to students with a like profile to them over time, similar to our SGP scores on our MCAT. And so district-wide, our current reading proficiency rate on this assessment tool is 69%. And our current proficiency rate on math on this assessment tool across students assessed is just under 65%. What we're really excited to see is in both of those subjects, our growth rate is higher than our achievement rate. So what that tells us is over time, if our students continue at that growth rate, we should start to see those achievement levels continue to grow. So we were really excited to see that data point. Our admin team was looking at this earlier this week, and we're just like celebrating those growth rate scores as well as some really solid wins and achievements. You'll see a slight discrepancy in the number of students assessed here because our primary students, some of them do not take STAR reading, they take STAR early literacy. And so those are sort of in 2 different buckets in the test. So that's why you see that slight discrepancy. So diving in and taking a look, what we're going to be looking at are graphs for each grade, with the exception here of grade 1, because grade 1 students take STAR reading for the first time in MOI in the middle of the year. Prior to that, they take the early literacy assessment. So if we look at grade 2, for example, what you'll see is a comparison of where students fell in those achievement categories for the beginning of the year to the middle of the year. And so looking at TES, I hope one of the things you'll notice is that every grade level has had growth in the percent of students meeting or exceeding benchmark from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And additionally, every grade level has shrunk the category of urgent intervention. So what that shows us is we are moving students at both ends. And so we're really excited to see that trend and those patterns, and that's across all grade levels at TES for reading. When we look at our math data, we see similar trends, but they are not quite as dramatic, with the exception of grade 1, but a little caveat. This is the first time the first graders at BOY take STAR math or STAR reading in that capacity. And so we tend to see, we've seen over the years that there tends to be a jump BOY to MOY that's a little more significant in first grade. But again, when you look, what you see here are some pretty significant decreases in the urgent intervention group. And some less dramatic jumps, but some jumps in math scores as well for TES. When we look at our middle school, we have a different pattern going on. We don't see the same growth when we look at grades 5 and 7 for reading. We actually have declines in the percent of students that are falling into that meet or exceeds category. We are seeing growth in that grade 6 cohort, a slight growth. But one thing to keep in mind as we were unpacking the data with the admin team this week is that even though you don't see that growth in students moving in a cohort, it doesn't necessarily mean they're not making that growth, but it means they're not making growth at the rate to keep up with the benchmark change. So we were really digging in and saying, who are these students? What does that growth pattern look like? And digging into some more diagnostic data. We see a similar pattern with math at that middle school, with the exception of our grade 6, where we do see some pretty significant growth. And again, you can see that both in the growth for students meeting exceeding and in the decrease for students who are in the urgent intervention category. One of the things that we did at the middle school last year was create and start putting out our literacy and action classes. So we've been increasing literacy instruction as a result of our data the past few years for literacy at the middle school. So we are in year 2 of putting the literacy and action classes at the middle school. High school reading scores, what you see here generally is our high school has higher achievement across the board. We are really approaching that 80% mark in a couple of places. You'll see consistent growth in grades 8, 9, and 10 in the percent of students meeting or exceeding. And then we see some varied data at the 11th and 12th grade level. Excuse me. And one of the ongoing conversations we've been having is motivation for our seniors when they're looking at assessments right now, because we're seeing patterns and trends across many years with our 12th grade cohort. And what's interesting is if we follow their cohort data, it doesn't look like that till they hit 12th grade. So we know there's something going on with their seniors that is not matching their patterns and trends we see for other grades. So we have a lot of questions there that we're leaning into. And then similarly, when we look at our high school math, we're seeing some strong growth patterns in certain pockets, and then some flat lines in some other pockets. And so one of the things that we are starting to question, both for literacy and math for high school, is looking at some of our class levels and starting to question whether our students' needs are being met with the leveling system that we have in place. So we're starting some conversations with the development of our program of studies for next year about, whether we have general classes, resource classes, things like that. So we're definitely leaning into looking at different data sets to see if certain classes and makeups of students and our co-taught classes are having the impact we anticipated that they would have. So just to summarize some of the highlights, at TES, we have seen achievement in all grades in reading, which includes in all grades an increase in students meeting and exceeding and a decrease in the percent of students in urgent intervention. So across the board, our data for reading at TES is very positive. When we see math, particularly in grades K to 2, we are seeing an increase in the percent of students meeting and exceeding and a decrease in the percent of students in urgent intervention. We're not seeing the same patterns in math for grades 3 and 4. So we're taking a look at that a little bit more intentionally. And for both ELA and math, our growth rates are higher than our achievement rates school-wide. So that's really exciting patterns for us to see. At the middle school, some of our highlights, achievement in grade 6 math. We've had an increase in the students meeting or exceeding in grade 6 math. We've seen achievement in math in all grades 5 through 8. Excuse me. I think I have a typo there. My apologies. I'd have to double check on that. It's a decrease in the percent of students in intervention that we've seen across all those grades. So it's not an increase in the percent meeting or exceeding, but we've consistently in math seen a decrease in red. So that's related to achievement. So it's a little bit confusing the way I worded that, I apologize, but that is a positive. The decrease in those red categories in math across all three grades is a strong win for us. It means we're really meeting the needs of our most vulnerable students, in terms of math, middle school. And again, at the middle school, our growth rates in ELA and math are exceeding our achievement level rates, which is a positive for us long-term when we think about growth for our students. At the high school, we have solid achievement happening in grades 8, 9, and 10, with an increase in students meeting or exceeding in reading. And in math, for all students, we've had an increase in students meeting or exceeding as well. We don't see the same growth rate at the high school, but our achievement is higher at the high school. And they are like, it's like a percentage point difference. So they're pretty close, but we do have achievement scores that are higher than our growth rate at the high school. But again, it's pretty close to level there, where we're seeing the opposite in the other two schools. So one of the things we're excited to see here is we've been focusing a lot on literacy in the last few years with our professional development and our programming. And we're seeing really solid results for that in our bookend schools, primarily at our elementary school and our high school. So that's where we're sitting.
Questions? Questions? These are really exciting numbers to be seeing, and you can definitely tell the amount of work and energy is going into this. I love hearing about people's reaction to the data and seeing, you know, all their hard work come to fruition and the movement to that green box or the decrease of the red box. So really, like, please pass along our hearty thanks for all of the great work that goes into helping our students, you know, to achieve, to learn the skills that they need to learn to be successful, not only in the grades they're in today, but as they move through their school career and beyond. It's really appreciate that.
And just long term, you know, this has impact for us as well, because we've been working a lot of TES on strengthening our literacy interventions as well as our core programming. And when we were looking at this as an admin team earlier this week, the question started to come up of like, oh, I think we're at a place now where we're so solid using our program. Now we can start building some more intentional math interventions during our win blocks and focusing on balancing supports for literacy and math. And then at the middle school, they're talking about how they're utilizing our data specifically for individual students during their teacher assistant team or TAT meetings and other meetings, and thinking about what they can do structurally to support ongoing work for individualized students, but also looking at what are we doing in core classrooms now to move that needle for all students. And in our high school, again, we're looking at courses, programming, and our academic coaching program. When we look at which students are in that program, those are students that we're starting to see movement in different data points as well. So we're celebrating that our academic coaching program at the high school is also having some success. Not just some success, significant success. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay, did you have any professional development update, or is that something I left on the agenda for last time? I apologize.
I always want to talk about professional development, but what I can tell you is that our next half-day professional development is actually next Friday.
Okay.
So we're in the process of finalizing our sessions and getting those updated out to teachers for tomorrow. And I'll have an update at our next meeting about our professional development.
All right, we do not have any surplus items this evening, so we'll move right on to our out-of-state field trip. Is there someone who wishes to speak to this for me? Excellent.
Sure. So what you have in front of you is a field trip request form from Eric Supple. Eric Supple is our ELA and history teacher who teaches the academic content for students who are enrolled in our MVP Academy, which is the Monty Tech program for carpentry and electrical. And so he's looking to take a field trip, as you can see, in late March with our senior students. So this would be students who are in both carpentry and electrical. It would be there would be 6 students, right? 3 enrolled in carpentry, 3 enrolled in electrical. And they are looking to go to a building convention where they can experience exhibits and breakout sessions related to residential construction. And it will include a wide range of options that they can pick and choose from. There are things like how to hang drywall, indoor air quality and air tightness and how you plan for that when you're building a new home. Window installations, lighting, deck construction, flash taping for moisture control. All these things I know very little about, but our students know quite a bit about. And so he is looking to take our seniors on a trip so that they can look at what's sort of up and coming in the residential construction field and compare what they've been learning about through their MVP courses at Money Tech with some of the newer construction. And they've been doing some history about how construction has changed over the past few decades. And so they are doing, as you might read in their write-up, doing some research projects as well. There's no cost associated with the trip itself because Eric was able to solidify some free passes for he and the students. So the cost is basically gas for the van for the field trip. So it's a great opportunity for them. And I'm excited to see it get up and running.
Any initial questions before we get the motion on the table? All right, I would entertain a motion to approve an out-of-state field trip to the JLC Live Convention on March 28, 2025. Motion by Sean.
Second.
Oh, motion by Eng, sorry. Second by Sean. Any questions or comments about this field trip?
I think it's great.
Thank you.
As somebody who does work in that field, it's ever changing every 6 years, so. It's good for them.
If you haven't had an opportunity yet to tour the facility, I'd be happy to go with you and tour the facility in Monty Tech. You'd be very impressed with what they're building.
I would like to do that.
Right.
So.
So, any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, and I say yes. So that is unanimous. It looks like we also have a donation acceptance. Is there someone who would like to speak to this? That's Susan.
So we have been given a very generous donation from Cindy Bear, who's the sister of our own Dave Bear, who does all of our lighting and things in the auditorium for our shows and whatnot. Cindy works for Bose and her department apparently has been dismantled and they're getting rid of a bunch of outdated equipment. Lighting, and he has spoken to them and they're willing to donate scraps. I'm using my air quotes for those who can't see me. Happen to fit very nicely into our auditorium because we're not quite a state of the art auditorium. So this is great things for our lighting department, instruments for lighting the stage area. And there's a list.
I think we can, the items included are an ETC Source 4, an ETC Source 4 Junior, 50-degree ETC Source 4 Junior Zoom, and another ETC Source 4. Is one of the first one was a 19-degree. I apologize, I missed that, and there's various numbers of units across the board. Any questions about this? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to accept the theatrical lighting instruments donation from Cindy Bear as presented.
So.
Second. Motion by Sean, second by Heather. Any questions or comments about this? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstained, and I say yes, so that is unanimous. And Susan, if you could please, on behalf of the committee, send a thank you note for this donation. Really appreciate that she thought of us, because this will be great improvement. We've got some exciting things coming up in the auditorium, so it's be excellent.
I'm wondering if anyone knows if they'll be actually, I'll use the word installed before the, will the lights be able to be put in? I don't
I'm
know.
sure we're in conversations with Dave about that, because he'll be the one that.
Right.
Puts them in and he's got a lot going on.
I know he does. I just didn't know if, okay, yeah, that's not like that. It's not like a little kid. It's like, hey, you're gonna.
Donation regardless if we think.
Absolutely.
But
I didn't know if that was kind of
Thank
part
you
of
for
the.
clarifying.
If not, they'll be into the spring concert.
Excellent,
Oh,
there we go. And then as Heather and Jeff and I were reviewing our policy readings, we realized that we had got some work done and then
Just fell through the cracks.
fell through the cracks and we needed to follow up. So Heather, you want to speak to these?
So we have linked here, some policies that we've already done, they're technology related. We approved the first reading of these 3 policies back here in the school committee on October 17, 2024. And as we were trying to access and review them during our last subcommittee meeting, we realized that they weren't live. And then when I dug, it was because we had never actually brought the second readings. So today we're bringing the second readings. And I can read the description again. It's IJND, access to digital resources. This is a new to us policy that was previously recommended by NASC. In the past, they recently updated it. We had just never adopted it. This policy states the intention of the school committee to facilitate the students' access to digital resources with appropriate budgetary allocations. The second one is IJNDB, the use of technology in instruction. This is a proposed update. It's changing the name from empowered digital use policy to use of technology in instruction. And there are some bullet points that can be removed because they are in the policy following IJNDC, which is the acceptable use of digital resources. We're proposing an update and a renaming for that policy. Let's see, the previous name was internet publication, and then we are looking for IJNDC to be named the acceptable use of digital resources.
So we'll get a motion on the table. I would entertain a motion to accept the following for second reading as presented. IJND access to digital resources, IJNDB use of technology and instruction, and IJNDC acceptable use of digital resources.
Okay.
Motion by Sean, second by Hank. Any questions or comments on that second reading? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, and I say yes. So that's unanimous. Item number 5 on the agenda, just didn't successfully remove itself. So we will move on to the superintendent's report.
Madam Chair, I promised to keep it brief because Laura had already some discussion about some things that would have maybe been in. So we're back from February break. We went on break just in time. Asked the nurses like, what's the prevailing illness that's going on right now? And I said, is it COVID? Is it the flu? Is it, neurovirus? And they said, yes. So it was, we really kind of linked into the February break. So we're glad that it's healthy and back. So we've had obviously a good start to the pretty long stretch ahead of us. So that people are motivated for sure to do that. So I think the one thing that is of note is that I took Mr. John Kaplis, who's part of the advisory committee, and Matt Brevard, who is on the select board, for a tour of the district. I haven't conducted a tour in some time. And I forgot how much I actually love doing that because I get to brag, and I do. And again, they are, they're interested in a lot of things, but quite frankly, we talk a lot about the budget as we move through and what have we done and what are we doing and what we hope to do, etc. And so I got to tell you that I know for a fact that they were impressed with not only just the things that we've done here and programs, as I was explaining. They've heard all of that when we actually get to see it. It's different. But I have, I remarked on several occasions. Tell me in elementary school, high school, middle school that you didn't walk through, and it's just really it was kind of cool collecting now. But I also know transparency is that maybe I narrowly missed something as we're walking through the hall. You just never know. We are, again, first of all, we had 1,400 kids, and so many can happen. But they were just really impressed with just a lot of what we do. Asked really great questions, and was we stopped in a few classrooms here and there just to make sure that, they saw kind of what was going on. And it just reminded me after going through everything that, how much we do and how much we've done and how well we're doing it. Because I think that is, that's the important part. And it was just a good opportunity, to brag a little bit and to show what the money that we do ask for, which we understand is considerable, where it's going, what uses it serves. And so I think that right off the bat was something that was just, a really, really, great opportunity for everyone. It's budget season. We have a lot of information that's going to be coming, and generally it pieces together starting here very soon. We have our preliminary meetings, the towns have their meetings, we then present to the towns again, to the board, not just I know that we've already had kind of an all boards meeting, but it'll move very quickly here, especially the first couple weeks of March. And as we've said plenty of times, we're confident that we will get to where we need to be. I think this year presents a challenge. We knew that this year was coming. We've been able to project that. We did so last year. But we'll figure it out. We're talking. We're not, no one is not talking at this point in time. So, give it a week or two, we'll see. But we've had a lot of good communication and I'll be meeting with the teachers and, it's really become kind of a dance. It really is really kind of scheduled out in terms of I meet with the union and I generally try to get to the school meetings, teacher meetings, just kind of give them a state of state because I don't really know until we know in terms of numbers have become solid. But it'll be a tough year this year. I don't think that that's any surprise, but we'll just communicate out what we can and what we do. Go from there. And really, I'm sure that's given all the other things that we've talked about. That's really it for me today.
Don't have any other questions. Is there anything in student enrollment you wanted to highlight?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, right there. So we're basically very little has happened. Let's see, we're -3. We lost 5 Templeton residents. We gained a Phillipston resident. We gained this was beginning of last month, but then we gained 1 school choice through a very weird situation, something like that. We're not accepting school choice, but it was just how that particular student was coded. So we were -3 from enrollment month from January to February. So very little has changed, although I will say that I want to say it's 3 families came in the last 3 days.
We had one who just re-enrolled from homeschool yesterday.
So we're, it's, we had 3 families. So it's always an ebb and flow, but other than that, we're stay pretty consistent.
I don't have anything to cover in items not anticipated within 48 hours. So school committee comments. Is there anyone that's agreeing to speak this evening? Seeing none. Then we can run through some of the reports. So the finance and facilities actually did not have a meeting in February, though, as you can tell, there have been plenty of finance discussions. District operations, I don't get the recap on that, or you want me to start? So I was like, oh wait, we did meet. Yeah. So in district operations, there's a couple of different discussions happening. One is around what do we want to do or what do we need to do with regards to mobile phones? Especially addressing devices like AirPods and their use, or in this particular case, should not be used in schools. What needs to be policy? What needs to be part of handbook? We're making sure that admin has a chance to weigh in. So no conclusions, just ongoing discussion to figure out what exactly is it that we want to do. It's a pretty hot topic. There's definitely some things coming in from the state potentially, but just trying to, make sure that we have all of our information collected before we make any decisions. We also spent, a little bit of time, again, addressing that we do have, the new school committee member handbook, which hopefully will be helpful as we do have that open space, and as well as new school committee members. The labor management committee did not meet this past month, so no updates there. We are still needing a liaison to, oh, no, CPAC, that's you, I'm sorry, you're saying. It was the next one.
They had a meeting on the third. Basically, they said it went well. Corey Rogers, went over the new IEP. They're lining up a company called Pariva, I think, Health, to present in March. And the Federation for Children with Special Needs to present in April.
Wonderful, thank you so much for that update. So it's PTO, for which we do not have a liaison. If, seeing as we haven't had a volunteer for a few months, I will reach out to PTO and just see if they can't send us in just an email report, of their, either send us the minutes or whatever format works best for them, so that we can at least make sure that they're getting represented during the meeting, and that the school committee is staying up to date with what they have going on. But should anyone feel so inclined as to operate as the official liaison, please do not hesitate to speak up. So liaison to NRSD Student Advisory Council. Sean, I know that you've been working to try to get a meeting on the books. Any updates there?
Nope.
Okay. And legislative representative Danielle, any updates for us?
So actually, you made me think when you were talking about the cell phone policy. I attended a like a meeting. I was gonna say a professional development, but it wasn't a development. It was a regional school health task force meeting today where we were talking about some proposed legislation to support schools trying to limit cell phone use and access. So look forward to sort of seeing what's on the horizon for that. As well as on Tuesday, the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education voted to unanimously put its proposed competency determination regulations out for public comment. Because they're looking for some feedback about a second potential pathway to graduation, that still includes the use of FCAS. And you imagine that has caused a lot of controversy out there, so we'll see how that ends up too.
Thank you so much for those updates. We do not have any correspondence today. Our next meeting, as we discussed earlier, is Thursday, March 6th at 5:30. So again, another reminder that is our preliminary budget meeting. So really important meeting, really hoping to have some folks at that. Do need executive session this evening. But we will not return to open session afterwards. So I would entertain a motion to enter into executive session as per MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A for reason number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares, the meeting will not return into open session immediately following. So moved. Motion by Heather, second by Sean. We'll do roll call vote. Hank.
Aye.
Sean.
Aye.
Chrissy. Danielle. Heather. And I say yes. So that's unanimous. Thank you everyone for attending.